We all know about the apex predators that rule the oceans, sharks. But have you ever wondered who was the very first boss of the seas after the age of the dinosaurs? There was once an ancient creature, massive in size and equipped with terrifyingly powerful jaws, that dominated the oceans millions of years ago. It was as long as a snake, as powerful as a crashing wave, and the ultimate nightmare for every sea creature during its time. Want to know who this boss really was and why it became the terror of the ancient seas? Watch the video until the end. You might be surprised by the answer. This creature had no scales, no armored shell, and it was not a dinosaur. Its long body stretched for tens of meters, slithering through the water like a giant sea serpent. When it glided through the waves, the ocean seemed to tremble. Massive schools of fish, ancient sharks, and even other predators all became targets. No marine animal at the time could match its strength and speed. For millions of years, it was the undisputed ruler of the deep. Only much later did humans finally learn the true name of this ghost of the ocean: Basilosaurus. Ironically, Basilosaurus was neither a lizard nor a sea snake. It was actually a massive prehistoric whale that lived around 40 million years ago. Measuring between 50 to over 65 feet in length, or about 15 to more than 20 meters, Basilosaurus had a long, slender body, very different from modern whales. Instead of moving its tail up and down like today's whales, it swam by undulating its entire body like an eel, making it an incredibly agile killer in the water. The jaws of Basilosaurus were packed with sharp teeth, built not for filtering food like modern baleen whales, but for tearing flesh. Fossil evidence shows that it hunted large fish, ancient sharks, and even smaller whales. In that ecosystem, Basilosaurus sat above even the sharks, something extremely rare in ocean history. What made Basilosaurus even more fascinating is that it still carried traces of its land-dwelling ancestors. It had tiny hind limbs, completely useless for walking, but they were fossil proof that whales once walked on land. Basilosaurus was truly a creature between two worlds, its body fully adapted to ocean life, while its origins were still visible in its skeleton. When Basilosaurus fossils were first discovered in the United States in 1834, scientists were puzzled by its strange shape. The long vertebrae and slender body made them think it was a marine reptile, which led to the name Basilosaurus, meaning king lizard. It was only after closer study of its teeth and skull that the truth was revealed. This was a giant meat-eating whale, belonging to one of the earliest branches of whale evolution. The Basilosauridae family once included around 30 species, but the two largest and most terrifying were Basilosaurus cetoides and Basilosaurus isis. Basilosaurus cetoides could grow up to 65 feet long, or about 20 meters, while Basilosaurus isis was slightly shorter, around 60 feet, or about 18 meters. But what shocked scientists was not just their length, it was their body shape. Long, narrow, and slender like a giant sea serpent. Unlike today's whales, which have large, rounded bodies, Basilosaurus was built for speed and maneuverability, turning it into a far more agile predator than its massive size might suggest. Even though Basilosaurus matched or exceeded many modern whales in length, it was significantly lighter. Its estimated weight ranged from 15,000 to 30,000 pounds, or about 7 to 15 metric tons, with some individuals possibly reaching 20 metric tons, which is still quite slim compared to the blue whale, which can exceed 330,000 pounds or over 150 metric tons. This lighter build gave Basilosaurus the ability to accelerate quickly, change direction smoothly, and close in on prey with deadly precision during underwater hunts. But the most terrifying weapon Basilosaurus had was not its size, it was its jaws and teeth. Unlike modern whales that use baleen plates to filter food, Basilosaurus was a flesh-ripping specialist. Its jaws were armed with long, curved, razor-sharp canines for gripping prey, while its back teeth had deep grooves and knife-like edges, allowing it to tear off large chunks of flesh with brutal efficiency. The bite force of Basilosaurus isis has been estimated at up to 20,000 newtons. That is powerful enough to crush large bones. With that kind of bite, even sharks or smaller whales had little chance of escape. Fossil bite marks show that Basilosaurus often targeted the heads of its victims, a quick kill tactic that left prey unable to fight back in just a few seconds. And this is not just speculation. Some Dorudon fossils, a primitive whale species about 16 feet long or around 5 meters, and a relative of Basilosaurus, have skull injuries that match the teeth of Basilosaurus exactly. This shows that the giant predator was not afraid to eat its own kin, behavior only seen in true apex predators at the top of the food chain. Stomach fossil evidence also reveals that Basilosaurus fed on large fish and ancient sharks, including species from the genus Carcharocles, the ancestors of the legendary megalodon. That means during the Eocene period, even predators that would later become legends were once prey to Basilosaurus. Basilosaurus was not just a predator of the open sea, it was also a bold invader of the boundary between ocean and land. With an enormous energy demand, it was willing to attack any creature large enough to become a meal, including semi-aquatic species and even land animals that ventured too close to the water's edge. On the Basilosaurus menu were primitive manatees, sea turtles, tiger sharks, ancient sharks, and at least 2 species of smaller whales. Some scientists even believe that if it ever came across animals like Moeritherium, a semi-aquatic mammal that looked somewhat like a small hippopotamus, Basilosaurus could very well have made them prey too. This theory is strongly supported by the discovery of Basilosaurus fossils in the Sahara Desert, over 125 miles inland, or more than 200 kilometers from the modern coastline. At that same site, fossils of Moeritherium and even pelicans were found, indicating that this area was once a thriving shallow-water ecosystem. During the Eocene, the Sahara was not a desert, but rather a vast coastal region or lagoon, where Basilosaurus could both hunt and mate. That made it a multi-environment predator, capable of exploiting almost any food source available in its surroundings. While the exact habitat of Basilosaurus remains debated, its ecological role is undeniable. The large number of fossils does not point to social or pack behavior, but rather highlights a highly successful solitary hunter. Unlike modern whales, Basilosaurus did not have a spermaceti organ for echolocation or coordinated group hunting. It hunted alone, relying on its sharp hearing and brute strength. One of the strangest features of Basilosaurus was its tiny hind limbs, leftovers from its land-dwelling ancestors. These limbs were far too small for walking, but they played an important role in reproduction, helping to stabilize the long body during mating. This detail makes Basilosaurus one of the most bizarre whales that ever lived. Its method of swimming was also unusual. Basilosaurus did not have a large tail like modern whales. Instead, it moved by flexing its entire body up and down like a massive eel. This allowed it to launch sudden attacks from shallow waters, where it was nearly unbeatable. Its vertebrae were hollow, making the body lighter but limiting deep diving, turning Basilosaurus into the perfect predator of the shallows. Basilosaurus existed for over 7 million years, from around 41 to 33 million years ago, long enough to become a symbol of absolute power in the Eocene oceans. But like many other rulers in the history of life, Basilosaurus could not escape a global upheaval, the Eocene-Oligocene extinction event. This was one of the most significant ecological crises in Earth's history, second only to the disaster that wiped out the dinosaurs. The exact cause is still debated. Some evidence suggests that Earth entered a rapid cooling phase as ice sheets began forming in Antarctica. This global drop in temperature made shallow seas, the preferred habitat of Basilosaurus, much harsher. Ocean currents shifted, plankton populations collapsed, and the entire food chain unraveled. Other theories point to a possible meteor impact that may have contributed to massive environmental disruption. Whatever the cause, the ocean ecosystem changed too quickly for giant predators like Basilosaurus to adapt. The Basilosauridae family declined and eventually disappeared, while a smaller, more adaptable branch of whales, Neoceti, the ancestors of modern whales and dolphins, survived and continued to evolve. The extinction of Basilosaurus marked the end of an era when whales were the ultimate warriors of the sea, making way for a new lineage to take the stage in the ongoing story of evolution.